Hello everyone. I'm sitting next to my IAPLC tank this year and I'm here to tell you a story. Well, basically this is the biggest cliche of a life lesson you can get. But it's about how not to give up, ever. In this video, I'm going to go through the whole process of building this tank, getting it ready for the contest photo, and also what happened since I took the photo, because the tank actually looks different than it did in its contest stage. It's not been my favorite one, to be honest. Well, the final result is my favorite tank I've ever done, but the process itself, it has been a nightmare all along with lots of difficulties. I definitely wanted to evolve on my previous good scapes. I've had an Iwagumi layout that I've built in my home tank, which was 100 by 45 by 45, that got rank 120 something, I don't even remember, to be honest. Then I've had a similar layout here in the shop in one of the 120s, which is 120 45 45, which ranked 68. The main decision to apply this year or to build something for this year's contest came around November. I've definitely felt the limitation of depth. So all the 120s in the shop at the moment are 45 by 45 sizes, and I felt like I need way more depth to give more detail to the layout and give more impact to the layout. Well, this tank just got emptied around that time. This used to be my discus setup, and it's 150 by 60 by 50. The 60 depth is where I believe I could step up in the Hardscape. I've started to design the tank in my head middle of December, late December. I started choosing stones. I just basically started to select whatever I liked from the stock we had, and I just put them aside. About 3-4 times of the stones that actually ended up in the tank, and I started building around January. I've adjusted that hardscape many times until the beginning of February, where I completely dismantled it and started all over, because I just couldn't find the balance I was looking for and the impact I was looking for. I fell into the issue of clinging onto one rock, which I've for some reason decided that this is going to be my main rock, and I definitely need to use it, and I just couldn't find its place, and well, I managed to get rid of that. And actually, I believe that rock is not even part of the final scape. So early February, I started all over. I was lucky enough to have some help with this, because finally, for the first time, I was not the one holding the rocks for someone, but actually our friend Huba was holding the rocks for me. So thanks for that, mate. And I've never used this extreme depth before. Well, in a contest, and obviously I've built in this glass already before, but it wasn't this style. And I needed to figure out that height. So I definitely wanted to use smaller rocks in the further points of the scape, which you see in the background. For that, I decided to go with big bags of crushed lava rocks. Then I've actually ended up using them in the front as well. So underneath the big ones, these act like supports. And this was a new experience for me, and I'm really glad I went this way, and I'm sure that I'm going to use this technique later on, because you can make rocks stand in a way that they would never stand on their own on glass or even in soil. So this build has been quite different from how we usually set up our tanks here in the gallery, because when we build for video, we know the shooting date weeks or months ahead, and that day you need to build it, and it has to be finished within the day. So we don't have the luxury to play around with the hardscape for weeks, or in this case months. So thanks for the patience of our guys doing the YouTube channel, because this up until now was a missed content for them. And then I tried another technique that's new for me, but it's been used for quite a few years in aquascaping now, and that's gluing the sand pad, because the extreme height lift that goes towards the back, that wouldn't ever stand on its own. I've actually personally learned this from Fabian Beck when he was here building a tank for us in the gallery, and he's used this technique and I've just copied that idea. The only issue I've ran into is in some places the glue actually got visible, and in a very specific spot it started to develop green spot algae. We started to kill it with green aquacarbon and then hydrogen peroxide just injected on top of the algae, and luckily it cleaned it off enough. But in the long run, now you can see that it's basically turned brown. I think this is more like the hydrogen peroxide. It changed the color of the sand itself. And I'm really lucky that this didn't happen before the photo, because this is something that I have no idea how I would have fixed it for the contest. The hardscape I've ended up with, for me, it was really, really close to my original plan or design. Whoever else took a look at it from the shop, my colleagues, everyone was like, okay, this is a bunch of rocks. I needed to trust myself that I know what I'm doing, and it doesn't matter if other people don't see it. I need to be able to show it in the final photo. That's it. I've done the main hardscape early February. Then again, I've adjusted it for weeks. Beginning of March, I got to the point to actually plant the tank. It was already too late, to be honest. Planting early March meant I only have 3 months to get the scape to its fullest potential. I've managed to get a plant list where I wanted a minimalistic look, but I've wanted more than just 1 or 2 plants. I didn't want it to be that minimal. I wanted to really mimic a mountain range in the distance and getting the effect of different vegetation as the height changes on the mountain, as the depth changes compared to where I look at the tank from. This is the time to thank Tropica Plants for sponsoring this build. They've sent me amazing condition plants for this setup. Actually, a huge amount of plants. It's more than what I usually do, and that was because of the time limit for the deadline. I've wanted to get a head start on the plants. A funny thing is that even though I've planted a lot of plants, by the time I got to the photo, there were additional plants compared to the original ones. Due to some CO2 issues, I've actually lost some plants, and in some cases, I didn't replant the same one that I originally used. I got to the point where I needed to choose fish for this setup. Fish are just as important as the plants, the hardscape itself, when it comes to contest photos. For the big, impactful mountain range that I've designed, I needed fish that are as small as possible to emphasize the size of the rocks and the feeling that you are looking at mountains and not just rocks. So I've ended up using Boraras uraphthalmoides, which is one of the smallest fish we have, and they actually work really well in schools. The big number of fish moving along the scape together, it has a really big impact on the final shot. During the process of building the hardscape itself, I've tried to look at it from a camera angle. I've actually brought in my camera or just used my phone sometimes to try to position it up ahead and try to figure out what angle I'm going to use in the end for the final photo. When you just walk in here and look at this tank, you see a very, very different look than what I show you on the contest photo. The angle has a huge role in that. The actual height where you shoot from and the focal length of the lens you use. You can play around a lot with how much you see from the reflections, how much you see from the water surface, how much does that add or deduct from the hardscape itself. This big rock is, when you look at the tank from the front, it's basically hiding everything that's behind it. But I've placed rocks behind it, and there are a lot of plants behind it that are only visible in the side glass as a reflection. And that way, it looks like it's the extension of the aquarium itself. For taking the actual photo, I've made a few adjustments on the setup. Mainly, I've dropped the water level slightly, but about 1 or maximum 2 centimeters. I wanted the water surface to almost touch the highest rock. Also, I've put on some studio flashes, so I didn't do the final shot with the original lights. They hit the main rocks a bit from behind, so there are more shadows on the big rocks than what you would see now with the normal lights, and that helped me to emphasize the drama of the scape and the drama of the big rocks. And it actually gave me an effect that I didn't even expect, and to this day I'm not sure why it happened, but I'm really glad it did. There is a slight color difference on the right side and the left side of the scape on the final photo. I believe what happened is that one side got more of the original light, because these actually weren't taken off, they just have been pushed to the back to give space for the studio flashes. This is where the title of the scape, Before the Storm, came. Obviously, I've used hair dryers to move the water surface. I've used white paper to lead the fish. These tricks you can see, we have separate videos about how to take the actual photo of a tank for a contest, where we talk about this in lots of details. After taking the photo and seeing what I've entered, I was expecting to get into the top 100, even though there were lots of difficulties. The final photo felt powerful enough for that, but I was expecting to be somewhere over rank 50 and just hoping to beat my previous best, which was 68. So that's where I sort of expected. And for the problems and difficulties, we've actually recorded a short part for this video right after taking the final shot, because I wanted the experience to be fresh. So what you see next is something where I had no idea what my rank is going to be this year. So here we are, it's 1st of July, and I have mixed feelings. Because the reason for this shoot is to tell you how happy I am that I got to the point where I could make a final photo of my tank, which was, well, really a big question up to the last minute. And we are just a month later now, and the tank looks like shit, doesn't it? So what happened? Well, we had CO2 issues throughout the whole life cycle of this aquarium. We fixed it, we got to the final weekend before the deadline, and actually that was the weekend of Luis Cardozo's workshop here at Green Aqua. As he was preparing for his workshop, choosing Hardscape, and we've been talking about how he's going to use all the plants and so on, this was the day before the workshop, I suddenly got inspired and I started working, and I put in extra stones, I put in extra plants. Obviously I took some of his advice as well. He was here checking up what I'm doing and giving me some more tips. And I managed to get the tank to a level where I was like, okay, this is good enough for a photo. I took the shot. The fish were lovely, really. They've been working really well, swimming across the top, coming back down on the bottom, swimming through in between the two big rocks. Anything I've ever wanted from fish in a competition photo. We've talked to the guys who are doing the video, and I told them, wait a little bit. It's gonna get slightly better, and then we're gonna do the B-roll shots for the video. And now again, we are just 1 month after all this has happened, and well, the tank turned to the worse, a lot worse actually. This is an emotional roller coaster, and I definitely wanted to do this part of the video way before I knew the result of the contest, because what's important is that I'm happy with what I've achieved, especially considering how difficult it was to get there for this tank, and I don't want this feeling to be ruined by a bad result. At this point, I have no idea what's going to happen. We're going to try to fix it in a way. I think the elatine carpet is gone by far. There's no way of fixing that. In the meantime, temperatures have increased dramatically. So we have over 30 degrees Celsius outside. Just a couple of days ago, it was 36, 37. So even the showroom is air conditioned. We are suffering a bit with warm water, and elatine is one of the first to say, I'm out when the water is too hot. So I think we're gonna try taking that out and putting in some simple carpet like Aleucaris Aticularis Mini, which I have all around the tank anyway, so we can fill the front with that.
Number 31. Before the Storm by Tamak Danko from Hungary.
Okay, well that's unexpected.
Congrats.
Thank you. Okay, I gave up at about 50, to be honest. The rank came out of nowhere. What I remember is I don't even realize that my tank has come on the screen, and I believe it was Balázs sitting on my other side and just shouting suddenly that there is my tank and it's ranked 31, and like, I couldn't believe it, and it didn't really sink in that day, to be honest. It's still a bit, I don't know, weird to think about it, and I think I need more time to get comfortable with this result in a good way. You would think that once you get to the point where you can take the final photo, after that the tank was fine, and it really wasn't. Some of you might have already noticed that there is no elatine in the front, which used to be. That's what I planted originally, and that's what was in it on the contest shot. The photo is already taken. It's gonna be much easier to work with Aleucaris pusilla. For the ratios and for the final effect, the elatine was much better. But just for looking at the tank, this is perfectly fine. We've had multiple algae blooms in this scape ever since. There was actually a big question mark if we can do this final part of the video with me sitting next to this, or it's gonna be gone by then, because we had so much work with it. So huge thanks to our maintenance team who kept it running, kept replanting when it was needed, and yeah, just didn't give up on getting it to this stage. I don't think there is long left for this tank now, to be honest. We finished with this video, and everyone is fed up with it. We'll see. Obviously, rank 31 feels pretty good, I'm not gonna lie, but it's much more about what I felt when I got the final photo, and the feeling that I know where I can improve. So I don't have the kind of feeling that I think a lot of people have with the contest, where they're like, they don't understand why they didn't finish higher. I see big problems, well, in person as well, but even on the photo, I know what I would have done differently, or what I would do differently now, and what I can improve on for next year. So that's a big push for me to go forward and get to build the best possible Iwagumi. That's it. And I think that's what you should get from your result as well. Whatever you got, the number doesn't matter, except in case of Luca. So, who's the winner?
Number 1, Great Wave by Luis Carlos Galarraga from Brazil.
It's amazing.
So he reached the top.
Well, when people say you should step out of your comfort zone, that's the result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well done. And yeah, just a final thought. Teamwork. I've never experienced this before. We've heard it with all the great masters that have visited Green Aqua and held their workshops. Most of them belong to a community. And this was my first year ever where I've shared my work with other people. And to name them, I got great help from Luca Galarraga, Luis Cardozo and Fabian Beck. That's something I'm going to build on next year as well. Get advice, get in touch with other aquascapers and use the great community that we have in this hobby. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you liked the tank. I hope you enjoyed this not so short story about how it all went, and see you next time. Goodbye.